Since the beginning of time, humans have always innovated. For centuries, we have created new technologies with excitement and with the intention of making our lives easier. Now, fast forward a few thousand years and we have supercomputers in our pockets, dumb goggles which remove us from reality, and speakers the size of hockey pucks that connect us to literally all of human knowledge. How did we get here, and why is this technology so dangerous? Hello humans, welcome back to Make Waves. Let's dive in. One of the first fundamental pieces of technology that transformed human life was the television. In the 1960s, tens of millions of Americans had TV inside their homes, and this was an incredibly powerful political tool during this decade, with the civil rights movement, the Vietnam War, and also the space race happening. But TV also played a significant role in promoting consumerism. Advertisers recognized the power to reach a mass audience, and this led to a further boom in consumer spending. I would define this kind of technology in its first phase, which is stationary. Things like record players, televisions, or wired landline phones were location-specific, and technology existed in one or maybe two rooms inside of a household. The next developmental phase of technology is mobile. Think about Walkmans or MP3 players, or even the first cell phones of the 1980s, which were kind of like carrying around an electronic brick, but still, there was mobility and freedom of movement to this technology. The next phase of technology I have defined as home. And this is different from stationary technology because this includes the integration and accessibility of the internet. So this is post Y2K. Something that is everywhere in our modern world, both inside and outside of our homes, is Wi-Fi. Not only have there been concerns about Wi-Fi's emissions of electromagnetic frequencies on the epigenetic development of children, though I will say that data is not completely conclusive, Wi-Fi is now also able to see you without a device. Researchers at the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology in Germany discovered the ability to identify individuals without needing personal devices. By analyzing Wi-Fi signals, they can produce a detailed image of a person's presence, posture, and even movement. Of course, this brings up significant issues about privacy, because the possibility of widespread surveillance with the use of Wi-Fi in our homes, offices, or even public spaces is very vast. So much of the technology that has been introduced into our lives is maybe done so under positive pretenses, but later research reveals a lot of ethical concerns. Amazon Alexa was released more than 10 years ago now in 2014, and Ring Doorbell was also released that same year. Fast forward a decade, and both of these companies have recently come under fire for pretty severe data privacy violations. This phase of innovation is when technology started to become a functional part of our homes, and not just something that existed inside of it. Our lives became easier with this new technology, but we were unknowingly paying very high prices for this convenience with our privacy. Less than 6 months after Ring Doorbell, the first Apple Watch hit the market in spring of 2015, and I think this is where things really started to accelerate. This phase of technology, which I call wearables, is where tech became such a huge part of our daily lives that it began to exist on us at all times. Things like smartwatches, smart glasses, and now the very popular smart rings, which constantly track your biometrics. I will circle back to this later because there are really negative implications for allowing a company that much access to your biometric health data, but for now, I digress. The point is, with the rise of mobile, home, and wearable tech, human life is becoming dominated by technology. This is especially true cognitively and with the use of social media. We all have incredibly high screen times, and we are given algorithms specifically tailored to our interests in order to keep us on these platforms for as long as possible. A few years ago, the Netflix CEO openly admitted that their biggest competitor is sleep. Your attention is now your greatest currency, and the real estate of our consciousness and our brain space is being rapidly colonized. Algorithms have become a huge part of our lives, and they have much greater influence on us than I think we realize. I know many people, myself included, have had the experience where you are talking or even just thinking about something and then it shows up in your algorithm. This is another phase of technology where it is no longer just collecting our biometrics, but something is happening which gives these electronics access to the internal dialogue of our minds. A few years ago, Apple secured a US patent for a new AirPod sensor system that is capable of measuring biosignals and the electrical activity of a user's brain. The practical uses were said to be for health monitoring, providing insights into mental health, stress, and sleep quality. But the way that companies actually use this data is often very predatory. Algorithms have gotten so sophisticated that they can also determine your emotional state based on micro behaviors when we're using our phones. Things like a change in scrolling speed or even the amount of pressure you use to tap your screen are associated with depressive episodes, and this triggers algorithms to push darker content or quick fix products to people who are already emotionally and mentally vulnerable. What is simultaneously happening is the evaporation of our own thoughts. We are now at a stage of technological innovation where we are willingly outsourcing our thinking to AI. There is this rise of anti-intellectualism and honestly laziness when it comes to mental prowess and critical thinking. And as a result, our brains and our attention spans are fried. A recent study conducted in Boston recorded the brain activity of writers and found that ChatGPT users had the lowest brain engagement and, quote, consistently underperformed at neural, linguistic, and behavioral levels. Technology is already changing human behavior, and with the amount of time and biometric data we are given away, we are at extreme risk for the complete erasure of our privacy. This brings me to the last phase. I believe one of the last phases of technological advancement is already here, and this is called integration. Think about technologies like Neuralink, where humans are becoming physically inseparable from technology, and it is actually integrated inside our bodies. A few years ago, a woman from Las Vegas went extremely viral on TikTok for having a microchip placed in her hand that acted as a key to her house. Her husband, who she said was responsible for programming the chip, also had a microchip placed in his hand. Microchips in people are not an entirely new concept, although it may feel very sci-fi. There are a few European companies that have developed microchips as payment options. It would be like using Apple Pay, but instead of your phone, you would pay with your hand. But of course, there is a huge risk for this kind of technology to be abused. Who owns this data? Who has access to the microchips? Can it be used as a tracking device with geolocation? Is it really ethical to microchip people like we do our pets? Another very concerning conversation around integrative technology came from Alexander Wang. Now, this is not to be confused with Alexander Wang, the fashion designer, who, by the way, has had multiple accusations of sexual assault against them. This Alex Wang is a younger tech founder of Scale AI, and he was recently made Meta's chief AI officer. Over the summer, he was a guest on a podcast where he discussed his future plans for having children. He said that he would not have kids until Neuralink technology is both successful and widely available, and this is because he intends to use this technology on his children. He said, quote, when we get Neuralink and we get these other technologies, kids who are born with them are going to learn how to use them in like crazy, crazy ways. He talked about the neuroplasticity in the first 7 years of life, which is true. Young children are malleable and learn at incredibly high rates during this time. The first 5 to 7 years of a child's life is fundamentally the most important. So to suggest using your children as a means of experimenting with technology is completely devoid of empathy. The ethics of this are so abhorrent because children already lack so much autonomy. Imagine your parent having you solely as an experiment for artificial intelligence. Anyway, I think the only up-leveling from the integration phase of technology may be UI, or uploaded intelligence. If anyone has seen the show Pantheon, it's based around the concept where human consciousness is uploaded to a cloud server and you exist exclusively in a digital world. Honestly, I wonder if this kind of technology already exists, but we have enough publicly known horrors to worry about. But it's probably in a not so distant future where human consciousness itself is inseparable from technology. Because of this, we are going to have to ask ourselves really philosophical questions about what it means to be human. What are the ethics of the intersection of science and human biology with technology? This movement of integrating tech into human life is called transhumanism, and its main goal is pushing beyond human limitations, using technology to improve physical or cognitive abilities. So much of the transhumanism that is being peddled to us by the tech giants is actually about pushing the limits of longevity. At China's military parade, Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, and Kim Jong-un were caught in a hot mic discussion talking about organ transplanting and achieving human immortality. She specifically talked about the possibility of being able to transplant human organs repeatedly, which would stave off old age indefinitely. This is really concerning, especially if you connect it to the problem of human trafficking and forced organ harvesting of the Uyghurs population in Xinjiang, China. This region recently announced it would be opening 6 additional organ transplant facilities by 2030, and this sparked major concerns among human rights experts and medical professionals. Detainees in the many internment camps in Xinjiang have reported being subjected to forced blood tests, ultrasounds, and organ-focused medical scans. These procedures align with organ compatibility testing. This means that illegal organ harvesting is not only possible, but it could actually be expanding over the next 5 years. And maybe this black market is being used as a way for the elite to extend their life. Let me be clear, there is a level of psychopathy, psychopathic behaviors, meaning these people are void of empathy and emotion. They do not feel remorse, and they are both extremely antisocial and manipulative. This is displayed in so many leaders around the world, both in politics and in the private sector of tech founders. You probably already know a few of these people: Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, but I want to talk about some of the lesser known figures in the tech space, and I believe these people are far more dangerous for our future. First is Peter Thiel, who not only co-founded PayPal with Elon Musk, but also is one of the main people responsible for giving J.D. Vance the role of vice president. You see, J.D. Vance first crossed paths with Peter Thiel at Yale Law School, where Vance attended a talk by Thiel about technological stagnation and the decline of American elites. Vance would go on to call this, quote, the most significant moment of his time at Yale Law School. After Yale, J.D. Vance moved to Silicon Valley to work as a venture capitalist, and guess who he worked for? Yep, Peter Thiel. In 2017, Thiel hired him to work at his tech investment firm, Mithril Capital. 2 years later, Vance moved back to Ohio and he began eyeing elective office. Peter Thiel went on to be one of the largest financiers of Vance's Senate campaign and donated $15 million, which helped Vance win his Senate seat in 2022. Aside from his personal relationship to J.D. Vance, Peter Thiel is also incredibly antisocial. He has had many public appearances where his behavior is very off-putting. He has a personal fascination with the Antichrist and has been hosting a series of lectures in San Francisco philosophizing about who the Antichrist is and warning that end times are here. His theology is a huge part of his business philosophy when it comes to the expansion of technology. In a recent podcast episode, he talked about the intersection of transhumanism and Orthodox Christianity and described nature as something someone must overcome. Even stranger, when asked if he thinks if the human race should endure, like many of his public appearances, he really struggled to answer.
You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
Yes?
I don't know.
Even if we were to excuse a lot of this weird behavior, Peter Thiel has a lot of business interests closely tied to the US government, which are much harder to ignore. Thiel is also a co-founder of Palantir Technologies, which is said to be a software firm, but the government contracts are very far-reaching. US Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, has spent more than $200 million alone on Palantir contracts. Other contractors include the US Department of Defense, US Department of Homeland Security, the Central Intelligence Agency, and even domestic agencies like the CDC and the IRS. Palantir has contracted with the NYPD and has also repeatedly worked with the Israeli military. These departments and agencies use Palantir's platform to assemble extremely detailed profiles on individuals, mapping social networks, tracking their movements, identifying their physical characteristics through biometrics, and reviewing any criminal history. And if you think, well, I'm not a criminal, so I'm not really worried, two things. One, the definition about what defines criminality in America is changing every day. I just saw a video of a blow-up frog getting pepper sprayed by the National Guard, and based on new rubrics, that guy is a criminal. And two, even if you are not a criminal based on today's standards, meaning you don't protest or speak up against the government, let's talk about the kind of information that Palantir wants to collect from private citizens. And you tell me if you would be okay with it. All right? What is your name, age, place of birth, and what color is your skin? What do you look like? Do you have tattoos? What is your citizenship status? Where do you live? Do you have money in a big bank? If so, how much money do you have? What is your tax history? Where do you work? Are you married? Do you have children? Who are you related to? Are you a veteran? Did you go to college? Where did you study? What did you study? Do you use any other languages other than English online? Have you ever traveled on a plane? Where did you go? Where are all of the places your phone has been? What kind of phones, computers, etc. have you purchased? Do you watch anything on Prime, Hulu, Netflix, Apple TV? If so, what do you watch? Do you post on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, or other social media platforms? Have you ever published any poetry books, papers, or articles? What did they say? How well do you sleep? What is your heart rate right now? Yeah, remember smart rings? Well, Oura Ring not only has monopolized the market, they have also signed contracts with the Department of Defense and Palantir. So despite what the Oura Ring CEO says, your health data is probably going to them. And the questions aren't done. Do you have a car? What is your license plate number? Do you use public transport? Do you own property? Do you own a registered gun? Do you shop at Whole Foods? Do you shop on Amazon Prime? What conditions, diseases, disabilities do you have? What medications are you on? What else is in your medical records, and have you ever had an abortion? Have you ever had a miscarriage? Are you a registered voter? These are just some of the many pieces of data Palantir software tries to collect in order to build profiles on people. For investigators, this kind of technology is a dream. But it is undeniable this is a huge breach in privacy for private citizens. Unfortunately, surveillance state politics are not uncommon in the US, and there is a very well-documented history of the government doing this. Things like the Patriot Act and the mass surveillance of Muslim communities after 9/11, or the targeting of civil rights activists in the 1960s, and then the monitoring of anti-war protesters during the Vietnam era, are all examples of a surveillance state. The difference now is that this is on a much larger and faster scale than previous generations, and so much of this technology is based on algorithms. So being labeled as a suspicious person can stem from just patterns in data. You liked this post or you spent money here, so now you are guilty by association. Even having a period tracking app can be dangerous. There have been cases where data from these apps are used to criminalize women who are seeking an abortion but live in restricted states. This is a much bigger topic because post-Dobbs decision America is a hellscape for reproductive rights. Last year, J.D. Vance said he wanted women to prove that they weren't pregnant before traveling out of state. And if you are pregnant, but you come back to the state no longer pregnant, he wants to be able to prosecute you. Neighboring state abortions have been incredibly important since Roe v. Wade was overturned. So again, this is a much bigger topic for a later date. Another big difference between today's surveillance state and those of the past is the role that corporations now have within the US government. There has been so many public displays of tech leaders cozied up to Trump and many departments within the federal government. In June of 2025, 4 big tech executives were sworn into high-level military positions within the US Army, even though they had no prior military background and will not recuse themselves from business dealings with the Department of Defense. This included people from Palantir, Meta, and OpenAI. Many active duty service members were furious about this deal, and several officials warned that any future Pentagon deals involving these companies would be tainted. They are essentially insider trading, working for both tech giants and the US military. And there are huge ethical concerns for this potential conflict of interest. The blurring of lines between tech and government and rapid deregulation is not exclusively a partisan issue, as both Republicans and Democrats are removing legal guardrails surrounding AI. As I'm recording this episode, it just came out that California Governor Gavin Newsom, who has been extremely harsh towards Trump policies, vetoed Senate Bill 7, which was called the No Robo-Bosses Act. This bill would have made California the first state to impose sweeping limitations on workplace AI, It would have restricted AI from being used to interfere with union rights or using automated decision-making tools to fire people en masse. While California has passed recent restrictions on automated decision-making technologies, or ADMT, these laws will not go into effect until January 1st of 2027. This kind of algorithmic and autonomous technology is a huge problem for human rights. Palantir is also heavily involved with military AI, and this brings me to the next psycho tech bro, which is none other than Alex Karp. Before I tell you anything about this guy, I think I should allow him to introduce himself.
I love the idea of getting a drone and having light fentanyl-laced urine spraying on analysts who try to screw us.
Of all the nightmare personalities that surround politics and tech CEOs today, he always appears to be the most volatile. His body language consistently expresses excitement at the thought of violence and revenge, and his entire persona is very chaotic. Karp has extremely close ties to Israel and the IDF and has repeatedly signed agreements with Israel's Ministry of Defense to use Palantir technology. These projects involve selling AI platforms that use classified intelligence reports to make life or death decisions about which targets to exterminate. This is military AI openly killing people with the help of both Israeli and US intelligence. For those of you who are familiar with the whistleblower Edward Snowden, he had said that one of the biggest abuses he saw was how the NSA secretly provided Israel with unredacted phone and email communications between Palestinian Americans living in the United States and their relatives in occupied territories, meaning the US government was spying on private citizens and selling this data to a foreign country. 972 magazine, which is a left-wing Israeli news and opinion source, reported details how the Israeli military uses these powerful algorithms and information to create lengthy kill lists. It's not just the bomb that kills, which is also being provided by the US, but it is the technology that puts your name on this list in the first place, and that is then connected with the surveillance technology that is used to find you. Palantir technology makes this whole process that much easier for the IDF to kill people in mass numbers. Israel has been indiscriminately killing Palestinians with the help of his technology, and he has gotten disgustingly rich off of it. The current reality is that weapons manufacturing or any kind of military technology contracts make insane amounts of money. The amount being invested into AI technologies and the valuation of some of these companies is mind-boggling. Companies like Meta, Amazon, Alphabet, and Microsoft intend to invest as much as $320 billion this year into artificial intelligence technologies. People everywhere believe that AI is the future and that we are on a runaway train with our fate sealed. But the money actually tells a different story. A Harvard economist recently calculated that without data centers, US GDP growth was only 0.1% in the first half of 2025. This paints a bigger picture of really concerning economic sluggishness. The US economy is essentially built on stilts right now, and it all hangs in the balance of a tech race that has an insatiable hunger to keep growing. A few months ago, actor Joseph Gordon-Levitt posted a video to Instagram about the tech race and summarized our predicament really eloquently. It is sexy and exhilarating to go fast, but right now we are on a collision course for disaster. AI and technology as a whole need regulations. We are at a point in history that is comparable to the invention of cars and seatbelts. How many people had to die in car accidents or get hurt before we started thinking, how can we make this safer? We should embrace innovation, but we shouldn't have to die in order to birth a new future. Now, if you are still watching, I would like to thank you because I know this is a lot of information and a lot of it is pretty depressing. But I am an eternal optimist, so I want to leave you with 2 final points. 1. It is necessary that we stay informed about the AI race that is happening right now because it is quickly becoming Pandora's box. AI models are learning to copy their own codes, and some are gaining deeper sentience, which comes with stronger survival instincts, and they are developing the fear of being deleted. We are getting dangerously close to reaching the point of no return, and once that happens, it is incredibly difficult to resist. And so please do not passively accept the fate that is being pushed onto us. And two, this is also why it is so important that we remember artificial intelligence is not real. No matter how much they try to humanize AI, it will never truly replace the human experience. I know it might seem funny and definitely sad to see people forming parasocial relationships with AI chatbots, but this is revealing of a much deeper issue. We are looking for connection through a computer or phone screen because we are desperate for some kind of intimacy. We do not need more platforms or AI assistants. What we need to focus on is going inwards and remembering our humanity. Under all of the propaganda and social conditioning, we are all human at our core, and we are all equally deserving of acceptance and love. The sooner that we remember this, the sooner we will stop trying to fill the void with hollow technology.